To episode 1 of the Rebellious Nerd Podcast. Today's guest is Lenore Skenazy, and she is many things. My favorite among them is the former title holder of America's Worst Mom. She's also a blogger, TV show host, columnist, and New York Times bestselling author of Free Range Kids. She leads the free range movement, to which her book is titled, and is leading the way to a more realistic style of parenting. Lenore, you ready to join me in your rebellious pursuits?
I am. I can't help but love a rebel.
Awesome. Well, as a dork of epic proportions, meaning me, I often leave things out of introductions. So could you help me fill in some gaps and tell the audience a little bit more about yourself?
Newspaper reporter at the tabloid The New York Daily News for 14 years, fired because I wasn't funny or interesting enough, apparently. And now I've resurfaced as America's Worst Mom, running Free Range Kids, which is not a parenting philosophy. It's simply a skepticism about the idea that our kids are in constant danger. I don't think they are. I'm happy that they're not. And I'm dismayed that our culture pretends that they are in almost everything they do, see, eat, wear, or encounter.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. The landscape of parenting is a little wonky, to say the least. So before we get into the meat of the interview, what I like to do is help people get into the mindset of the rebellious nerd. So if I may, ask you just a couple of quick questions to get us on the right path.
Sounds fun.
The first one. Tell me something that's true that very few people agree with you on.
Your child could stand outside for 600,000 years and not get abducted by a stranger.
Ha! Awesome. I can absolutely dig that. If you could change a part of your culture, meaning either local, city, state, country, world, whatever, as though you had a magic wand, what would you change?
I would change the idea that we're surrounded by sex offenders who want to prey on children.
That's a very good thing to change, I think. Okay? And
Yeah, I would love to change that.
and so within that, what problem, at least as far as your life's mission is concerned, what problem are you trying to solve?
Well, it goes back to the same one I was just talking about. If you think that your kids are in constant danger, of course you'll do anything to keep them safe. So one of the things we do is we supervise our children all the time, which means that they don't get any chance to walk to school, play outside, get on their bikes and ride till the streetlights came on, which is something that most of us appreciated as kids. So,
Absolutely.
so I would like to give that back to children, and I would like to give that feeling of confidence in our kids and our communities back to parents, because rationally, there's no reason we should be so afraid for our children today. Our crime rate today is lower than it's been since 1963, which
Wow.
was it's a long time ago. I'm sure it's before you're born. It's before there was color TV. That's how long ago it is. And so, if the times are that safe, why do we persist in arresting parents who let their kids walk to school, arresting parents who let their kids wait in the car for 2 minutes while they pick up the pizza? Why do we have 800,000 people on the sex offender registry when studies show that the sex offender registry isn't making us any safer, but it ruins the lives of everybody on there? And you can get on there, like big story in the Times on Sunday, if you're a 19-year-old and you sleep with a 17-year-old. Turns out she was 14, she lied, but she doesn't want him prosecuted. I don't want him prosecuted. He thought he was sleeping with a 17-year-old, and even if there you can actually get on the list if you are a 19-year-old with a verifiable 17-year-old in some states. So why are we treating everything as if it presents a grave threat to our child? This tiny little wait in the car, this short walk to school, this teenager who wants to sleep with another teenager. Why are we acting as if he's a 35-year-old who's going around raping 4-year-olds? I mean, it's a false sense of danger and alarm, and the results are terrible for everybody. Parents have no free time. Children are constantly supervised. That means that they don't get to come up with their own games, use their imagination. They don't run around as much. And also, we're incarcerating people at a rate that is completely out of whack with the rest of the world. We have 5% of the population and 25% of the world's prisoners. So there's something really wrong, and it all begins with a hysteria about danger.
I absolutely agree. It's really funny. Like even when I go out I have a 3-year-old daughter myself, and I let her run around the park without me following her everywhere I go, and I get weird looks on the playground from strangely enough it's been mostly moms, but I just get these weird looks
You're
like,
a
why are
guy
you
at a
not
playground.
following
You're
him?
going to get strange looks anyway. They're going to think that you're some kind of predator.
I never thought about that. Maybe
Yeah,
mixing up why they're looking at me.
yeah, could be anything. Could be a bad dad or simply, somebody out to kill and eat their children. Either way, what's this guy doing here?
You see, I just lie to myself and just imagine they think I'm Matt Damon, so they always want to look at me.
Yeah,
But hey.
that's option 3. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really interesting. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about is parenting in general, and something I've studied relatively deeply. But I'm so curious about this, and I think a lot of people are going to be curious about this as well. Can you tell me a little more about how you got the title of America's Worst Mom?
Yeah, I think that people are a little jealous. See, my son is 17, so what is that? 8 years ago, when he was 9, he asked me and my husband if we would take him someplace he'd never been before in New York City, where we live, and let him find his own way home by the subway. And we said yes. And so
Hmm.
one sunny Sunday, I took him to Bloomingdale's, which is a fancy department store and a fancy zip code on the fancy Upper East Side. And I said, okay, today's the day, goodbye. And he was excited, and he found his way into the subway, which is right underneath Bloomingdale's, and took it down for about, 10 minutes and got out and had to take a bus across town. Probably took him another half an hour. And he arrived home levitating with pride and joy, and that's what I felt too. I felt like this is my job as a parent, is to watch him grow up, not to just keep him as an embryo that I carry with me all the time. He's really, children have always desired to become grown up and to grow up and to be part of the world. And ours is the first generation that's absolutely not letting them take on any of the quote unquote risks or responsibilities that every generation until now has. And I think it's depressing a lot of kids because nobody likes being treated like a helpless baby.
That's definitely true. So would you say that like your view on parenting, that your philosophy is that our job as parents is to equip our children to go out and conquer the world or whatever it is they're trying to do without getting killed, not necessarily protecting them from everything in the world that may harm them.
Yeah, I mean it's almost putting too big a burden on parents. Our job is to do what our parents did for most of us, which is to believe in us, to give us the basic skills of here's how to cross the street, don't get into a car with strangers, if something's bothering you, let me know. Um, it feels as if there's all these magazines filled with 15,000 steps to making your child more independent, and even that seems like, while I appreciate the goal, it turns everything into a very detailed task that you could do right or wrong. And I don't think parenting is that checklist. It's not a checklist. It's trusting your kids and just sort of watching what they're doing and then letting go a little more, and oh, that didn't work, and trying it again. But you don't really need a checklist, an expert, a class, a magazine, or any book. Even my book you don't need. You just need to trust that kids are born to thrive. They've never been safer than right now in human history, especially here in our country. And you can trust in their in evolution, which has brought us to this point. You can trust in your community unless you're in a particularly dangerous spot. You can trust other people. Most people want to help kids. And you can trust the crime rate, which is down. So you really don't have to start thinking, I must develop a child with all these traits that are going to keep them safe and sound. Kids are built to survive.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually reminds me of an interesting parallel with the education world. So little kids or as parents are being marketed to by companies for things like Baby Einstein or the leapfrog or these other different methods
You know what
to
happened with Baby Einstein?
they were when they were sued by the SEC, I think, or the FTC.
Yeah, they were sued by the Campaign for Commercial-Free Childhood, which is a very shoestring operation up in Boston, because on its website it said educational, and the Campaign for Commercial-Free Childhood said, actually, these aren't educational. What's educational is not sitting in front of the TV being taught by Baby Einstein. What's educational is like crawling around the room or chewing on the couch, or
Absolutely.
banging on the piano leg. I mean, really, everything that you encounter as a person, and
Hmm.
particularly as a baby, teaches you something. But when you're very passive and you're told that the only way you can be educated is by somebody giving you information, that's like the least effective, most boring way to get anything into a person. And in fact, they could have spent that time better, all those children, crawling under a chair.
That is so true. I know there was a book that I read called "Brain Rules for Baby," and they were talking about like what is the goal for education for early kids. Well, it's encouraging like neuroplasticity. It's encouraging, I guess, delayed gratification, encouraging grit, determination. Those things like that are like modeling their worldview more than the amount of information they cram into their skulls. And
So true. So true. And
it
also,
was
even by talking about it in this way, it's like, oh, we need grit, we need determination, neuroplasticity. It's like, Einstein was raised without his mother thinking about, I hope I'm encouraging the neuroplasticity of his brain. He spent his time, I mean, this is according to Wikipedia, but he did spend his time playing with cards, and not even playing a card game where you're trying to figure out the numbers or how often they come up. He was making card houses,
right.
which, as you know, in one way, it's just a stupid waste of time. You don't even get a house when you're done with it. They all collapse eventually.
Uh
But
huh.
on the other hand, anybody with the kind of patience and ability to start over again after something completely collapses, that in itself is a wonderful trait. And it wasn't that his mom wanted to develop it, it's that he found this interesting and he did it, and look who he became. So
Right.
even the idea that we have to come up with the right games or the right words, the right vocabulary, the right classes to somehow create, these buzzwords in our kids is already buying into the idea that there's a right way to do it. And if you leave a moment fallow, woe betides that child.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. Oh, 80%. I do like my mnemonics training because I'm a dork, but that's okay. It's more about me than about my kid for that point. Um,
Yeah, mnemonics is interesting, but also, I mean, like, you can talk about mnemonics, or you can say, let's read some, you know, fairy tales and nursery rhymes. Those are mnemonic devices without intending them to be so. I mean, they rhyme. A
yep.
lot of times there's alliteration, Jack and Jill. Those are all mnemonic devices without sitting in front of a computer screen saying, this is a mnemonic test for your kid. Not
Ah,
that I think you do that, I'm sure you don't.
well, as for me, actually, it's more like I tell my daughter to imagine things. So, like at nighttime, instead of just telling her a bedtime story, I'll tell her to close her eyes and I'll say, try to imagine yourself in this story. So instead of just saying, hey, little Jack and Jill went up the hill, I'm like, close your eyes,
But
imagine
here,
you're Jill.
I know, but you know what?
It's fun.
All the writers in the world, everybody from Shakespeare to me, heard stories when we were kids, and we imagined ourselves, avoiding the big bad wolf, or climbing the mountain, or riding off into the deep blue sea without somebody admonishing us. You must close your eyes and imagine, because imagination is important. So I don't want you to just hear this story. I want you to actively imagine. Even
Oh,
imagination kicks in automatically. So I'm not saying that we're
that's
not
true,
allowed
actually.
to think about our kids, but the what is currently happening to parents is they're told that nothing kicks in automatically, and so it's their job to open the world of imagination and open the delight of music and open the interest in movement and get children to climb and grasp and think. And all this stuff happens automatically. Even reading,
Huh.
believe it or not, can happen automatically. So I don't want to sound like a
Interesting.
crazy person off the charts,
No.
but we're buying into this prescriptive model of parenting, even by saying, I want to create imagination, so I'm going to do it this way. You don't have to do it. Children are automatically imagine things, or they couldn't listen to a story at all.
That's interesting. So, do you think that it would be better, say, instead of being prescriptive, being more modeling? So, I guess so. If you want your child to enjoy music, just play some music, or pick up your
Right.
own instrument and
I'd
play.
say yes, play music, and I don't even consider it. You don't even have to think, now I am modeling enjoying the Beatles, and perhaps she will emulate me. Play what you like. I mean, and if they don't like it, eventually they'll figure out far better than me how to how to download the music they do like, or how to sing a song that they enjoy. I mean, there's an entire market out there that says you have to play them this kind of music, and there's baby music for babies, and there's toddler music for toddlers, and there's baby beluga. I mean, you can play music that you like, you can enjoy life, children learn more by watching and trying than by being instructed. They want to copy what you're doing. They want to be part of things. And all this new idea that we have to sit down and say, I'm reading a book. Book starts with B. Now I'm opening a page. Look at the lamb. Imagine if you were a lamb. Lambs are soft and fluffy. Fluffy is a characteristic that you could find also in your pillow. See, this is fluffy, that is fluffy. Now we're making a comparison. And remember, fluffy sounds like stuffy. Those rhymes. That's a cognate. So you don't have to do any of that. You read them, the Three Little Pigs, and you laugh about it, or you find a more interesting story, frankly, than the Three Little Pigs. There's so many funny books out there now for kids, like The Pigeon Eats a Hot Dog. And you'll be fine. They'll be fine. And even if I hate to say it, even if you don't read to your kids, believe it or not, my mom didn't read to me. Kids will find things that interest them. And I think it's great to expose them to a lot. I certainly did. I dragged the subway rider had a birthday party, thanks to me, at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Nobody could have liked it less than our entire family and all his friends. But, God damn it, I was exposing him to great art. And now all he cares about is football. I didn't expose him to that. Somehow he found football. I had never watched a football game. And my older son loves debate, and I'd never been to a debate. So they'll find their way. Expose them to things, but don't imagine that you must knit every synapse and that you're leaving it fallow if you're not deliberately doing something at that moment. Because thank God our species has gotten to this point without any of these interventions that we now think are so normal and necessary. They're not.
Interesting. So it's almost like basically telling parents just chill the F out.
No,
relax.
I'm not. I'm saying get mad at a society that keeps telling you that if you do chill out, you're leaving the brain matter on the table and your child is never going to succeed, or you're not watching them close enough and they're going to die. Be mad at a society that is trying to drive us crazy as parents, because there's always something behind it. There's TV ratings by showing you scary stories, and there's money in the marketplace by telling you your child won't succeed without the baby Einstein. There's magazines to be sold. There's always some ulterior motive. And so get mad at that and say, I'm not yelling at parents to chill the fuck out, because how can they in a society that is so overwrought when it comes to kids, and what's the best way to raise them, and how can we keep them safe, and how can we develop every last nerve ending? Just, rail at the machine and look at it skeptically and exult in the fact that you can say, chill the fuck out to society, and you're fine.
There we go. That's perfect. Okay, so there's one little last subject. I know our time is...
All right, our time is up. Let's talk about it really fast.
Yeah. So what are the things that are actually hurting children? I know that there's something called the gambler's fallacy, who basically look at any set of numbers, like rolling a dice. The first time you roll a dice, probably at least 1 out of 6 is going to roll on a 6. Second time you roll a dice, same thing, but they're not related. They're independent rolls. I know that individuals... That's
right. It's always 1 out of 6, not 1 out of 5, now that you've gotten one out of the way.
Exactly.
So you're asking what?
What is not in that situation? So I know that the 600,000 years of a kid standing on a street corner 24/7 365 is how long that to be there before they're statistically likely to get kidnapped. Right. That is, people are freaking out over kidnappings because they see things on the television, some kid gets chopped up or something, and the gambler's fallacy kicks in their mind. They say, oh my god, I hear this all the time on television, blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the gambler's fallacy. If you're going to use a psychological term, it's the availability heuristic. The easier it is to imagine something or pull up an instance of it, like, my child is at the bus stop. J.C. Dugard was at the bus stop and she was kidnapped for 18 years. The more available a story or a picture is to your brain, somehow the more likely you believe it to be. It's like your brain works like Google. It asks, and my kid walked to school. What about Eitan Pats? He was walking to school and he was kidnapped. What about Adam Walsh? He was kidnapped. So if you can pick up, if you can quickly remember something, it's almost as if it's at the top of your Google search. You think it's more relevant to you, but it's not.
Yes, so I'll have to yell at Wikipedia for that one. But my question is specifically, what things are actually harming children? What should we be worried about as an adult?
Don't worry. I'm not even going to get into that, because then it's just like substituting one worry for another. You know what? Wear seatbelts. Have your kids wear seatbelts. That's really
right. or worry about childhood diabetes or something, or obesity. Imagine those things are
Yeah,
kind
those
of.
are on the rise. I mean, but then it's like then you're just gonna. I mean, your parent is not going to be able to chill if they're worrying about diabetes because they're thinking, oh, I want my kid to have exercise, but I'm worried about the predators on the block, and so I'm going to have them march up and down the street. I mean, like you just can't win once you start thinking that everything good or bad is dependent on the parent. I mean, if there's one thing I would like listeners, if there are any, to take away from this, it's that kids come out, they're genetically disposed to one thing or another, to being like my football loving son. I swear to you, I did not put anything football related in front of him for 17 years, and that's all he cares about. So they come out, they're their own people, they're built to last, and I think our job is to love them and to feed them.
Awesome. So where can our audience find you or support you? What is it that you're trying to I guess spread, or how can they help you?
Well, my blog is freerangekids.com. My Twitter feed is Free Range Kids. My book is Free Range Kids. My movement is Free Range Kids. But I also blog at reason.com, which is a libertarian site, because I really feel like, just as I don't think parents have to be thinking that everything has to be absolutely perfect for them to raise a nice kid, I don't want the government dictating exactly how I must raise my kid, because I don't think they know any better than we do.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope that your pursuits are successful in helping the society that we have chill out when it comes to raising our kids. And
I did have one thing to add, which is that
oh,
how do I make a living? Not by talking to the press, not by blogging, alas, 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 but by giving speeches. So if anybody wants me to come and give my hilarious lecture on how did we get so afraid for our kids, or my other hilarious lecture, how can you create a perfect child, hint, trick question. Also, if you go to Free Range Kids and you look at the top, there's a little tab for speaking, and I do speak all over the country.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck with your podcasts.
Absolutely.